In today's video, I survived 100 days in hardcore Minecraft. But there's a twist. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna be surviving all 100 days on one single chest. And oh boy, do I get stacked. Now with all that said and out of the way, let's get ourselves into 100 days in hardcore Minecraft, but it all starts on one chest. Pause. Wait. Okay, before this video starts, I just want to give a massive thank you to every single person who's been subscribing over the last couple of weeks. You guys have seriously been blowing up the charts on my channel, and I really just appreciate all of the support so much. Alright, back to the video. Alright, here we go. Day 0. I loaded into a brand new world, and with nothing else to do, I opened up my chest to see what I had gotten. I didn't get too amazing stuff, but I guess I did at least get some wood and my first end portal frame and water bucket. So with nothing else to do, I decided to use my bucket on my chest, and then I went underneath where I placed a slab. From there, I expanded my island by putting some stairs around the outside of my chest, and then collected up my water again before doing a little bit more island expansion. By the time I was done with that, I didn't really know what else to do, so I opened back up the chest and grabbed everything else that I thought could be useful. I then decided to place these candles on the mangrove logs here as, like I say, I had nothing else to do. I mean, it was day 0. After that though, I decided I didn't like them, so I changed them out for these red nether brick walls and then placed the candles back on top of those. Since I did have some wood, I also decided that I would make a couple of planks and then make myself a crafting table that I then used to make myself wood tools. I then went ahead and took those wood tools and used it to mine up some of the deep slate that I'd gotten from the chest, and then I went and used that to make the stone tools, making the wood tools that I just made useless. But that's fine. So from there I then decided to mine up these nether brick walls again, as I decided I didn't like them. I also decided to change the middle slabs on either side of my island to mangrove, and then did a mangrove border around the entire thing, as well as a bit more expansion. Then I placed a border of stripped birch logs around the outside and added the nether brick walls to the corners with some mud slabs on top of them. And this was my island. Pretty small, but like I say, day 0 still. By this time the sun was pretty much setting already and it had become nighttime. I didn't really have much to do throughout the night, but I did at one point decide to build this house around the chest, and also decided to test the grading between gold blocks and honeycomb blocks. However, I then remembered I can't mine the gold with my stone pickaxe, so it's gonna have to stay there for now. From there, I pretty much just wandered around my island the rest of the night until more or less the morning, when I decided to go under my island and place the slab that I then used to start placing some stairs around the outside of my island that I later planned to fill with water. This continued until eventually I got the notification that the chest had been refilled, and I went to go check what I'd gotten. And not terrible stuff, at least I got some wood and some ancient debris too. So with nothing else to do, I decided to continue placing the stairs around my island until eventually I'd placed my last step, and then when trying to collect it, I dropped it into the void.
Bye, have a great time.
Anyway, from there I decided to grab everything that I wanted out of the chest on day 1, and then started doing a little bit more island expansion using the new blocks that I'd gotten, mainly the copper. But after I built the staircase to the height that I was happy with, I started building a platform at the top out of the crimson wood, as I figured that if I ran out, I could just go to the nether later and get more. From there, I used some of my wood to craft some chests that I then placed down on my new nether wood platform. After placing down all my chests, I started sorting everything. In the beginning here, I tried to stay pretty organized, but as you'll learn later, that didn't last too long, to be honest. During the night, I also decided to grow some trees that I then chopped down to have some extra wood for chests and other things. I also decided to change the design of my staircase a little bit more so that it had 2 terrace areas. The next day, I got some pretty decent stuff from the chest, as I got my first bit of diamond armor and some emerald ore too, as well as some more copper. After that, I started adding these railings to the sides of my staircase to make it less likely that I would fall off and lose this world in such a silly way. From there, I went back to the chest and checked what I had. I then used the magenta wool from the chest to craft myself a bed so that I could sleep for the next night. After that, I added some quartz to the outside of my new platform, and yeah, I think it looked pretty good. From there, I also grew myself my first few bit of crops using the bone meal that I'd gotten from the chest earlier. After that, I started expanding my staircases that I built on the one side of my island to the other sides until the sun was setting, where I put all my things in a chest and then took my bed, laid it down, and went to bed for the first time in this world. When I woke up the next day, I went straight to the chest and sorted everything that I was gonna need, which wasn't much as the loot wasn't very good. I then continued expanding my staircases as well as the platform on top, until eventually the platform had reached all the way around my island and was giving a good outline for the size that it was gonna be, well, for now at least. From there, I did a little bit of editing to my island, as well as some expansion too. I decided to start using slabs instead of full blocks so that I could make my wood go further. Like I say, not much to do in these early days, so pretty much just a bit of expansion. When night came, I also decided to light up my island so no mobs would spawn, and then made my way to bed. The next day, the loot was pretty good from the chest, as not only did I get another piece of diamond armor, but I also got a name tag, some nether stars, and a bucket of lava and water too. Since I now had a new type of quartz block, I decided to change out some of the corners of my quartz stairs for the chiseled quartz, just to make my quartz go further. Since I now had a second bucket of water, I gathered up my first water and mined up the dirt so that I could place it down and build myself a new farm where there could be an infinite water source. I did also make sure to replant my seeds, as well as put some dirt around the other side of my island, where I then planted some saplings to get some trees growing. After that, I decided to go fill in the stairs around my island. This took me a little while with the limited amount of buckets I had, but eventually after making a new water supply closer, I was able to get it done. The next day, the loot was once again pretty decent, as I got my first bit of netherite armor, as well as some ender pearls and a bunch of other things. On this day, the chest also decided to give me some quartz pillars that I then went and placed around the sides of my staircase to add these pillar designs, which look pretty cool. From there, I decided to take all my podzol and started filling in one of the corners of my island that I planned to make into a farm. However, when I got my hoe to hoe it to turn it to dirt, it didn't turn to dirt, which I wasn't expecting. So I went under my island and built a platform under all my dirt using some mangrove slabs, and then I took my shovel and started mining back up the podzol, which was in fact turning it to dirt this time. Once I'd mined up all my podzol, I filled in the platform with the dirt again, and then hoed it all so that I could make it into my new farmland. Since I had a little bit more dirt extra, I also decided to start placing it on the other side of my island. However, it was a very little amount of dirt, and didn't really get much planted there except for some sweet berries. After that, I also did decide to change out the birch fences for the warped fences, which I think matched the island design a little bit better. By day 7, it didn't even seem like a possibility that I could get bad stuff from the chest anymore, as not only did I get some diamonds, some TNT, and a totem, but I even got a notch apple too. Using those diamonds, I then went ahead and completed my armor, and then also decided to build myself some diamond tools, as up to this point I had been using only stone. After making myself a couple of slabs, I then went and mined up the stone that I had gotten from the chest to get some cobblestone, that I then used to make myself 2 furnaces that I could use to finally start smelting things. I did at one point also attempt to grow a mangrove tree, which after using plenty of bone meal did eventually grow. But oh my gosh, did I regret it straight away. It was such a pain to get the wood out, and then after getting the wood out, I still had to mine up these dumb roots with my axe. My axe, by the way. I would think that you would use a hoe for this. Oh well. After dealing with that monstrosity, I made this little roof design that would go on top of the quartz pillars that would have some gold blocks in the middle like this, and then I put some mangrove trapdoors on the side of it to make it look really cool. On day 8, I went and looted the chest, which got me even more netherite armor, and a bunch of other stuff too, including some more shulker boxes and shells. From there, I expanded my top platform a little bit using the slabs I had made on the previous day, and then went around my island adding these roof designs to the top of the pillars. Once I was done adding them to all 4 sides, I looted the chest on day 9 to get my second end portal frame, which meant that I was getting closer and closer to beating the Ender Dragon. This was a really good day, as I got a bunch of ancient debris that I then threw into my new furnaces to smelt, and then I used that ancient debris to not only upgrade my armor, but all of my tools as well, getting me 2 major achievements. After that, I added this pumpkin to my farm just to light it up a bit, and then I started building these staircases on the one corner of my island to see how it would look if I made a higher platform. Since it looked pretty good from the bottom, I decided to start expanding it to the other side of my island until eventually I ran out of copper. On day 10, the loot was actually pretty garbage for the first time in a couple of days, and all that I could really take out of it was the ender chests. I guess at least I did get some more crimson wood, which was really good as it meant that I could expand my island some more. So that's exactly what I did. I crafted myself some more slabs and then went around my island expanding it a little bit more until eventually I was able to finish it all the way around. The rest of day 10 was pretty much just spent with me building the staircases around the other sides of my islands. On day 11, I got some reinforced deep slate from the chests, which for those of you who don't know, you can't actually get that in survival mode. So that was pretty interesting. Since the chest had given me some rooted dirt, I started experimenting with it to see how I could turn it to normal dirt, and found out that by hoeing it you got the roots out and got normal dirt again. Since I didn't specifically want any of the roots, I just placed the dirt over the void and then started hoeing it all up to turn it to normal dirt that I then tilled and planted some melon seeds in. From there, I continued the expansion of the staircases on the corners of my island until eventually I had done all 4 of them, and that was looking pretty cool. I also decided to go under my new farm and start placing the mangrove slabs that I then used to mine up my dirt again and place it back down in a way that would be efficient to be planting melons on. On day 12, I went to loot the chest, not getting too much good stuff to be honest with you, just a bunch of garbage that the chest had kind of just thrown at me that day. day. After that though, I went and continued building the staircases on the corners of my island, extending them up until eventually I'd done it on all 4 sides and they now all had 2 layers. I then went to go loot the chest on day 13, and to be honest, it seems like the chest is going downhill, as there really was not much good stuff in here. After that disappointment, I decided to just continue building my little staircases and decided to connect them using this end stone here. At first I tried using the arch design, but didn't really like it. However, for now I just continue decorating my island and going around adding these leaves to the corners. After that, I grabbed a map from my chest and ran to the middle of the island where I used it. Which, yeah, my island looks pretty cool from the top by now. After that, I continued decorating the staircases I had built by putting some trapdoors on the side and even using some stripped crimson wood as pillars too. On day 14, I went to go check the chest and once again got absolutely garbage. So I just continued and spent the rest of the day doing some decorating. From there, I then had a friend on my island who was offering me absolute garbage. So I very quickly greeted him and then continued building my bridges. This is when I changed the design from the arch design to the flat one. When I woke up on day 15, I went straight to the chest as usual, and finally, for the first time in a while, I'd actually gotten some good stuff from the chest. After that, I decided to continue decorating the upstairs of my island by using some glass to connect all of my bridges. Since the glass was one lower than the slabs, I also decided to bring the slabs down one level so that it was all level at the top. After that, I decided to try doing a bit of a design with the purpose stairs, but immediately didn't like the way it looked and tore it all back down again. When looting the chest the next day, I once again got some pretty decent stuff and even more diamonds, but then I went straight back to decorating the upstairs of my island by adding the purple design on the opposite side, which looked pretty cool. From there, I went and got a bunch of glass from my chest and started filling in the middle here. I pretty much did a grey border around the outside and then a black and green checkerboard pattern for the rest of the inside of the square, leaving a 3x3 gap in the middle that I then went and filled up with some gold blocks and then one diamond block in the middle too. Since I now had that 3x3 of precious blocks, I attempted to craft a beacon. However, you can't craft it with stained glass. Luckily, I did have some sand that I put on to smelt though. While I was waiting, I continued with my purpose stairs, and then I crafted a beacon that I had planned to put on top of those blocks. While I was underneath here though, I decided to mine up the mangrove that I had placed there in the first couple of days, and switch it out for some basalt, and then even decided to change out some of the other designs, like for example changing out some of the mud for some blackstone bricks, which in the end just looked cooler and kinda matched the vibe better. When waking up on day 17, I went to go loot the chest to find out that I'd gotten yet another end portal frame, making me even closer to fighting the Ender Dragon now. Then I also decided to mine up the fence gate and wall design, as I didn't really like the way it was looking, and changed it out for some azalea leaves, which made it look very cool and overgrown. From there, I placed my beacon on top of the blocks and waited for it to light, giving me the Bring Home the Beacon achievement. I then started decorating this pond by adding some terracotta that I added more purple stairs on top of, and then at the top of the purple stairs built a platform out of the purple terracotta. On day 18, I went to go loot the chest and once again pretty much just got garbage, so I continued with my day and changed the beacon color to magenta, which matched the island nicely. From there, I then went ahead and named all of my pets, and then went ahead and filled in the pond where I could then put those pets. Once I was done filling in the pond, I rebuilt the platform where I planned to put my end portal, and then started doing some decorating on this place. Seriously, I don't know how it takes me so long to do such a little bit of decorating. This literally took me the rest of the day. But that's fine. I just continued doing the decorating, adding some gold blocks here by the trapdoors to match my design down below, then went to bed. On day 19, I woke up and once again got garbage from the chest, but at least another pet I guess, that I then went ahead and named Codmother. So I started adding my fish to the pond, and then even put my axolotl in, which sadly went straight for my other fish to kill them. By the time I was finally able to catch her, she'd killed everyone except for the cod father, and so she had to be punished. Bye bye Lisa, see you. Maybe not, probably not, but okay, goodbye. I then made sure to give proper respects by making 2 tombstones for our lost pets and gave them a moment of silence. Okay, no, I didn't. I mean, it's fish. Anyway, from there, I decided to continue decorating my house, and seriously, once again, this took me the entire day, and this was all I was able to complete. Just this tiny little thing, not even a roof yet. When I went to loot the chest on the next day, I had actually gotten some endstone, which was great as it meant I could finally finish those bridges on the sides of my island. From there, I took my white banners and started throwing designs on them. I was testing all of them out and found that this earth design looked really cool. So, after making one of them, I decided to grab a couple of cyan banners and put some white earths on those ones too, that I then went around my island and placed on some of the pillars. After doing that, I grabbed myself a bit of scaffolding and then made my way on top of the place where I planned to put my end portal and started constructing the roof. It didn't look the best, but if you guys have any tips for me on building roofs, I'd love to hear them in the comments, so please let me know. The next day, the loot from the chest was pretty garbage, to be honest with you, so I continued building my end portal room and added some leaves to the roof to make it look really nice and overgrown. Now that I was done building the roof for the end portal room, I went ahead and crafted myself some slabs with the new end stone that I'd gotten, and made my way up to the upper level of my island where I could then finish the bridges that connected all the sides. Since I had nothing else to do, I grabbed myself an ender chest that I then went ahead and mined up for the extra obsidian and combined with a little bit more obsidian so that I could go ahead and build myself a portal. I just went ahead and built a temporary one on the one corner of my island as I didn't have a design for it yet. So I lit my portal and jumped on through. When I spawned in the nether, I got possibly the worst spawn you could possibly get, right in a basalt delta right by the floor. So after looking around for a bit, I decided to go back home, where I then grabbed a bunch of blocks that I thought I wasn't gonna need, as well as a bit of TNT that I could use in the nether to get myself some netherrack. Then made my way back to the nether and started placing blocks and using my beautiful parkour skills to get across the biome. After that little swim in the lava though, I spotted a bastion. It was right there. However, if you guys know me, you know that there's no way I was going to that bastion, as I'm just too scared of the piglin brutes. From there, I made my way to a netherracky area and placed a TNT that I then exploded to get myself a bunch of netherrack that I could use as building blocks. Once I had gathered enough, I headed back to my portal and started bridging through the lava till eventually, using almost all of my blocks, I barely made it up to normal land. After gathering a couple more blocks, I started exploring the nether, where I then very quickly found a fortress and decided that I may as well adventure in a little bit. I made sure to loot all the chests and at one point even got a couple of diamonds from one of them. While I was here, I also made my way to the open part of the fortress and eventually found myself a blaze spawner that I made my way over to and sat there and farmed for a little bit. Once I was done, I started making my way back and on the way got the return to sender achievement by shooting a ghast fireball back at it with my bow. When making my way back, I also decided to mine up the blocks I'd placed in the first time and make a proper staircase so that when I came back next time it would be much easier to get there. After fixing that back up, I made my way back to my portal and over to my chests. I'd also been in the nether for a full day, so I decided to loot the chests, but once again didn't really get anything too important from it. Once I was done with that, I grabbed a couple of sea blocks like corals, kelp and sea pickles and made my way up to my pond where I started decorating it. I did at one point also build this coral thing out of the water, but then all the coral died right away. From there, I went ahead and put some sand on to smelt, and then crafted myself a brewing stand and some blaze powder. When the sand had smelted, I crafted it into glass bottles, and then used those bottles to get myself some fire resistance potions for if I went back to the nether. Speaking of the nether, that's where I was headed. However, I did notice that the sun was setting, so I decided to stay there and sleep before I made my way back to the nether. After sleeping, I went ahead and looted the chest, and then made my way back over to the nether. This time, I also decided to collect myself a bit of gravel, as I had a plan to use it for something back in the overworld. After collecting all the gravel that I needed, I made my way up my staircase and started exploring the nether a little bit. I was just pretty much searching for a crimson biome and went far and wide searching for one. However, eventually I had gone a long way in one direction and decided to turn around and attempt going a different direction. So that's exactly what I did. I started heading off in the opposite direction. However, after way more traveling, I still was not able to find a crimson biome. So I went ahead and started making my way back to my portal. When I eventually got back there, I made my way on through to find out that it had already become nighttime. So I went ahead and sorted all my things into the chest before the next day came along. On the next day, I crafted myself a bunch of mangrove slabs, and then I went ahead and started mining up my farm. Once I'd mined up all the dirt, I combined it with gravel, which for those of you who don't know is a clever trick in Skyblock to get yourself more dirt. It essentially uses 2 gravel and 2 dirt and doubles the amount of dirt that you have. After placing all my dirt back down, I was able to till it all again and start using it for farmland. Now that I had more dirt, I went ahead and filled in all the other sides of dirt and tilled them all to eventually use them for farmland too. When I was eventually done playing Farming Simulator, I went ahead and checked today's chest to find that I had gotten myself another totem and some moss blocks and a bunch of hay too. After that, I crafted myself even more chests and just pretty much threw everything that I had in my inventory into there. On day 25, I woke up and looted the chest to not only get my next end portal frame, but a bunch of other good useful stuff too. I then also decided to take some copper and decorate the other corners of my farm that I hadn't done previously as I didn't have enough dirt to fill them in. From there, I made my way back over to the nether and made my way over to a warped wood biome where I went to mine myself a whole bunch of warped wood. After collecting myself a decent amount, I made my way back over to my portal where I then went ahead and used my new warped wood, craft a bunch of slabs, and got to doing some serious island expansion. there we go, a decent bit of island expansion done. The island was looking really cool by this point, and I'd added a whole bunch of new colors by doing that little expansion. By this point, I was wanting to do some enchanting, so I was searching through all my chests to find as many bookshelves as I could. However, I was only able to find one bookshelf and only a bit of paper. So with that out of the way, I made my way into bed, and then woke up the next day to loot the chest to only get some potatoes, which wasn't amazing, but at least it meant that I had something to plant in my new farmland. After planting all of that, and with the failure of not having enough bookshelves, I started making my way back over to the nether, until I spotted this creeper over here that I just had to get rid of. I then made my way into the nether and started mining a bunch of quartz, as I wanted to be using that for my island. After collecting a decent amount, I made my way back to my portal and then started using it on my island. However, as you guys may know, quartz is really difficult to collect, and the little bit that I collected really didn't take me very far. So after that day was done, I woke up the next day to, crazily enough, get bookshelves. I was literally stunned, as you can see here. I mean, I didn't move for a bit there, but crazily enough, I had in fact gotten bookshelves. So I grabbed those bookshelves out and did the next best logical thing. Yep, you guessed it, grabbed a bunch of netherrack and then started pillaring above my island to build a circle. I seriously don't know what the heck was going through my brain here, but for some reason I decided that I wanted to build a ring around the top of my island, and right after collecting bookshelves that I was gonna do that. Yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, after trying to build it for a little while, I decided I didn't like it and tore the whole thing down and made my way back down. From there, I mined up 2 more diamonds that I then used to craft myself an enchanting table and set up a temporary enchanting area. I then placed my enchanting table down and threw my pickaxe in to realize that I had no levels. So I made my way back over to the nether and went ahead and started mining quartz, which was a bit of a double whammy, as it meant that I could both be collecting levels as well as collecting quartz for my island, as that was a block that I was going to want to be using a lot of. While I was in the nether, I also decided to make my way over to the fortress, where I farmed there for a little bit, till eventually I hit level 30, and decided to keep going for a little bit longer at the blaze spawner, until eventually I hit level 33. Happy with my new levels, I made my way back over to my portal, and then over to my house, where I went straight to the chest to check, and I had gotten 2 diamond blocks, which was pretty much the best thing I'd gotten in a little while. With my newly collected levels, I got straight to enchanting and got Unbreaking 3 Efficiency 4 right off the bat. Although that was already better than what I had had previously, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. So I went ahead and grindstoned it and re-enchanted it. However, it was only offering me Silk Touch. So I decided that I would rather try my other tools out, and eventually decided to get Looting 3 on my sword, as although it's better with sharpness, Looting 3 by itself is a pretty good enchantment anyway. From there, I then went ahead and crafted myself some more fire resistance, then opened the chest the next day to get myself a little bit of nether quartz. Then I made my way back over to the nether, and then over to the nether fortress, where I sat there and farmed for a little while. The farming continued until eventually I'd hit level 33 again, and I came back home where it had already become nighttime, so I went to bed. The next day when waking up, nothing too important in the chest again. However, this time when I enchanted my pickaxe, I got Fortune 3 with the Unbreaking and the Efficiency. I also decided to enchant my axe, which got Efficiency 4 and Breaking 3, which was great. From there, I then made my way back over to the nether and spent some time doing some quartz mining. I did this for a little while, as I really wanted to collect a decent amount of quartz, and this was also getting me a bunch of levels too. By the time I was done, I'd gotten myself all the way up to 46. From there, I made my way back over to my portal, and then I checked the chest to find that there was in fact an end portal frame, now taking me up to a total of 5 of them. The next day's chest was not very good, to be honest with you, so I just went ahead and took off all my armor and started getting to enchanting, which got me some pretty good stuff on my boots and my helmet. However, the other stuff was not so good, so I just unenchanted it and used the plain stuff for now. Also decided to re-enchant a different sword to see if I could get something better, but didn't get anything good, and on my shovel was only able to get Silk Touch. Also did re-enchant my pants, but got nothing good. However, I did decide to wear them, as it was probably better than just the plain pants by themselves. From here, I took another look at my island and decided that it was time for some serious island expansion. So I went ahead and grabbed all the quartz I just collected, grabbed myself a stone cutter, hit record on the replay mod, and got to doing some serious expansion. And there we have it. Now my island was really looking serious. Now, as you can see in the top left, that did take me a decent amount of time to do, but it was definitely worth it. During that time, I did also have to make a trip to the nether to collect more quartz, as I just ran out. Also, checking the chest on day 46 didn't really give me anything good, so I just very quickly ended the day by going to bed. Now I know we just did a massive island expansion time lapse, but I mean it's Skyblock, what else is there really to do than build? So I decided to start adding some designs to the circular parts of my island and came up with this. However, when I started moving it to the other 3 sides of my island, I came up with a new design with this white and gold with the red and orange on the outside and decided to go with that instead. When I eventually ran out of materials, I also added these 2 little bridges on the sides here that I plan to do all the way around. During this, there was also a day that I got an elytra in a chest, which was absolutely brilliant, as it meant that I didn't actually have to go to the end cities later on. Nothing else too exciting really happened. I mean, I did have to go collect quartz again, but that's pretty much the story of my life by this point, so I'm used to it. And there we go. After an even bigger island expansion, my place was looking pretty cool. I also went ahead and made sure to grab some coal and some sticks to craft myself a bunch of torches that I then used to light up all the islands, as it definitely would make a massive mob farm. Speaking of mob farm, there was actually one platform that I missed before it became nighttime, but instead of dealing with all those mobs, I decided to rather go to bed. When I woke up the next day, I went ahead and looted the chest, and I did also make sure to go light up the platform that the mobs had been spawning on the previous day. Then, when standing on top of my chest and taking a look at my island, I decided that, although I do really like it, it was looking a bit flat now. So I grabbed a couple of colorful blocks and started constructing some buildings on the sides of my island. This wasn't anything too special, it was pretty much just some pillars of stripped warped wood with a groove combination of a couple of colorful blocks like yellow concrete, purple glass, and even some warped wood. For the walls, I went simple and used some oxidized copper and some purple glass for the windows. And this is what it looked like. Definitely was looking pretty cool. Also, by this point, it was finally the time that I realized that I could actually get villagers in this world by taking zombie villagers and converting them. So I started kitting these places out so I'd be able to fit 4 villagers, and after adding the trapdoors to both of these sides, it was now fully kitted for 4 villagers to be standing in it. And this is what it looked like when it was finished. It definitely added some height to the middle of my island, and I liked it. The next day I started off just like every other. I opened the chest and got everything that I needed out of it, which wasn't a lot on this day to be fair. Then, with the fact that I could now get villagers in mind, I went ahead and constructed a big box that I would later be able to trap some zombie villagers in and convert. I decided to build this out of dark oak wood too, as I didn't think I was going to be using it since it didn't really match the color scheme I had been going for. Once I was done with that little build, I went ahead and sorted through all my chests to find all the emeralds I could get, including the emerald ore and the emerald blocks. And eventually, after collecting all of it, I made myself a big emerald tower and mined it all up with my fortune pickaxe. By the time I was done collecting emeralds, I'd collected a bunch of them, and when crafting them into blocks, I'd gotten over 20 blocks of emeralds, which was going to be a great head start when I eventually had villagers. Since I was now just pretty much waiting for it to become nighttime to get some zombie villagers, I decided to grow a couple of mega spruce trees that I plan to later chop down and then turn into sticks to trade with some fletchers to get me even more emeralds. I also decided that I would get everything ready that I was going to need that night, including my potions, a couple of lights and golden apples, and then also added some fences to my villager box as well as a roof so that they wouldn't burn during the daytime if they were still converting. I then went ahead and also added some beds just for later on so that I could also breed them when I needed to. From there, I went ahead and knocked all the torches off of one of the side platforms closest to the box and waited for some mobs to spawn. It took a little while, but eventually when I did see a zombie villager, it had spawned with an absolute ton of other zombies. Like seriously, this was a crazy amount of zombies. So I had to go and take them all out. After killing an absolute ton of zombies, and finding that there were even more zombies, I lured my zombie villager into my hut, put him in a boat, and then made my way out, where I had to fight even more zombies, like an absolute ton of them again. But then eventually I splashed him and fed him the golden apple to start the conversion. While waiting for him to convert, I made my way on top of one of those mega spruce trees and started chopping them all down. Also, while I'm busy chopping wood, I just wanted to let you guys know that I recently went ahead and made my very own Discord server. It's called the Vanilla Dream 87 server, and if you want to join, all you have to do is click the eye in the top right of the screen and follow the link there, or you can just scroll down into the description and click the link there. Anyway, let's get back to the video. So, after chopping down all of those trees, I had plenty of wood for whatever I was gonna need it for. So after moving it into its own separate chest, I went ahead to loot the chest for this day, when I got the zombie doctor achievement, meaning that my villager had now cured. So I made my way over to him to find that he had in fact cured, where I then moved him over to the corner of the room and boxed him in. Then I broke him out of his boat and started the process of placing down a lectern until he gave me the tray that I wanted. It took a little while, but eventually I got mending for 13 emeralds, which wasn't the best, but it was okay. After buying a mending, I went straight ahead and added it to my elytra that I had gotten, so that I didn't have to feel bad about using it anymore. The next night, I was waiting for another zombie villager to spawn, which once again took a little while, but eventually one had spawned, and this time not with so many zombies, and I was able to move him into my box and trap him into a boat. Then I went to bed. When I woke up the next day, I had to start my day by killing a bunch of zombies, but then I put my second villager on to convert and continue with the rest of my day. Starting by looting the chest, which day 57 I got yet another end portal frame, bringing my total up to 8 now. From there, I made my way through my chest, sorting through, just grabbing all the ores I could find, and then moving them into my valuables chest. Well, all of them except for my lapis, which I made a tower out of and mined up to get myself a bunch of it, which really I did have a bunch of it now. I then converted all my emerald blocks into emeralds and went ahead and bought myself a bunch more mending books that I could later use on my tools. I also decided to add one to my pickaxe, as this pickaxe was pretty much maxed out by now. By then, my other villager had also converted, so I broke him out of his box and turned him into a farmer that I could then trade bread with, that I then threw to my 2 villagers to get them breeding. Now by this point, I was wanting to start doing a lot of enchanting. However, although I had everything I was gonna need, there was just one thing I was missing, which was a solid supply of levels. So usually on Skyblock, I would just build one of those ugly mob farms, but I really liked the way my island was looking and thought that one of those would really mess up the look. So what I decided to do instead was go to the middle of my island, where I then dug out a block and placed some water, and then made my way down to about level 20 in the world. When I got there, I started building a little platform, and then eventually expanded it into a platform that was going to be big enough for me to build this thing on. While I was down here, I also decided to jump into this water stream, where I went all the way up to the top and tried to remove the water. This water's been here since the first couple of days when I built that first farm and I accidentally placed the water into a slab, so I was happy that I could finally get rid of it. From above, the platform also looked really cool down there, so I was happy with it to this point. Day 59, I started by making sure to check what all was in the chest, but then I made my way down to my new platform / glow squid ink farm, and then started doing a little bit of expansion. And there it is. This is what the platform was now looking like. I expanded it to a decent size that I was gonna need, but now it was time to clear it up so I could actually use it for what I had planned to use it for. So I went ahead and added some lights to the bridge as I saw mobs were spawning there, and then made my way back up to the top where I had broken through the first time, and then I removed the water there and blocked up the hole I dug through, then got rid of the tower that I used to get down here.
Hello there.
From there, I made my way back on top and collected a bunch of materials that I then took down with me to the platform and quickly went ahead and constructed the storage system I was gonna need for this farm. I also decided to add some quartz slabs on top of the chest, as well as some staircases on the side so that I'd have somewhere to stand when I was smacking these mobs around. On day 63, I went to loot the chest and got myself 3 notch apples on this day, which was pretty crazy loot. Then I made my way back down to my platform and finished up the storage system on the other side. Now I know a lot of you have probably guessed it by now, but for those of you who missed it, I'm going to be building one of those ugly mob farms, but instead of on top of my island, I'm going to be building it underneath so it doesn't make my island look terrible. So I grabbed a shulker box and made my way over to the nether, where I went to go collect myself some netherrack. Pretty much I was just using the easiest block to collect, as I was going to need a decent amount of blocks to actually build this farm, and netherrack seemed to be a pretty good option. So after collecting enough netherrack, I made my way back over to my portal and then back through, where it had in fact already become nighttime. So after making sure there was nothing I needed in the chest, I went to bed. The next day, I went ahead and crafted myself a bunch more rockets as I was running out, and then made my way down to my platform where I started constructing the farm. For those of you who have never built this farm before, it's pretty simple to build. you just build a tube that's about 23 blocks high, and then at the top you go out 8 blocks on either side, which is the distance that water can flow. After building those sides, you build walls around them that are 2 blocks high. From there, you go ahead and fill in the spaces in between, which creates platforms for the mobs to spawn on, and then add some trapdoors so that the mobs will walk on top and fall down. From there, all you have to do is add the water, and then I would recommend putting lights while you build the walls that are too high around the outside, just so that mobs don't spawn. After that, I went ahead and added a roof of slabs. I put these at a half slab level, just so that even if it's dark up there, mobs can't spawn. After I was done building the farm, I also went ahead and added these decorations in the corners here, just to make the thing look a little better, and in the end, didn't even look too bad. From there, I went ahead and made my way inside, and removed the sea lanterns that I had placed to make sure no mobs were gonna spawn. After that, I made my way out, blocked up the roof, and went down to the storage system area, where I then waited for some mobs to spawn. After waiting for a while, still no mobs had spawned, so I made my way up to the top of the farm, where I dug my way in and was expecting to be greeted by a bunch of mobs. However, there were none, so I opened my F3 screen to check the light levels, yet they were all on 0. I even went into my resource packs and turned off my full bright to see whether that was making a difference. However, it was pitch black in here, meaning that it was definitely dark enough for mobs to spawn, and I wasn't sure why they weren't. I then went ahead and turned my full bright back on so that you guys can actually see something, and then once again went to wait. However, after waiting for a while, there still were no mobs spawning, and to be honest, I wasn't sure why this was. If anyone has any suggestions as to why this farm was not working down here, please let me know, as I'd be really interested to find out. So, after deciding that that was a very sad failure, I made my way back up to the top of my island, where I just went to bed. Day 68, I went ahead and looted the chest, and got 2 blocks of netherite as well as some diamonds, so a pretty rich day of looting. From there, I made my way back down to my farm, and tried waiting there for a little bit for mobs to spawn again. However, still no mobs spawn, so that was pretty disappointing. From there, I made my way back up to the top of my island and grabbed a couple of resources, as now that I had some more, I made my way around my island and finished off the circular part, making my island look definitely way more complete now. After that, I then got to adding those staircases all the way around my island that I had done in a time lapse earlier, which took a little while as they're pretty difficult to build, but I did eventually get it done. Also, it's a shame that this mob farm wasn't working, cause it really looks quite cool under my island there. On day 69, I went ahead to loot the chests and didn't really get anything too good. Now by this point, although I just built that mob farm, it was pretty useless down there, so I was gonna change it. So I started sorting through all my chests, grabbing all the valuable items that I could, until eventually I grabbed everything that I could find, and then took all the ores and started building a massive tower up, starting with the coal, then moving on to the copper, from there moving on to the iron, and then the gold. After that, I went to the redstone, the emeralds, and then finally the diamonds at the very top. After constructing my massive tower, I put all the smelted things into a chest and made my way to the top, where I started mining it all down. Once I had finished mining this all up, it had taken me pretty much the entire night, but by this point I had an absolute ton of copper, as well as a ton of my other ores such as coal and iron too. From there, I dove into my chests and grabbed all the dried kelp blocks that I could find, as well as my blast furnaces, which I then laid out and started separating all the dry kelp into. After placing all the dry kelp into the separate blast furnaces, I went ahead and put on all of my iron to smelt, as well as my other ores. Then into my pond under my end portal room, where I mined up my beacon. By this time, all my iron had also already smelted, so I took it all out of the chest and crafted it into blocks. Also grabbed a couple other valuable blocks, then made my way to the top of my mob farm, where I then went ahead and tore the whole thing down. It was a bit of a shame that I just built this and now I had to tear it all back down again, but I mean, it wasn't really serving any purpose, so I had to do it. While I was down there, I also fixed the floor and added my new beacon, which I had planned to put there, and made the color magenta just so that it would match the beacon I had previously. Since I was down here, I also built the other 2 arms of my island, and then made my way to the top of the island, where I did a bit of decorating by adding these little triangles on either side, as well as adding to those bridges I had built earlier by making them thicker and finishing them off a bit. Once I was done with the bridges and happy with the way they looked, I decided that I needed to work out a way to connect them on the corners. So I spent some time working on a bit of a circle design, until eventually I was happy with it. Once I was done with all of that building, I made my way to the Nether and spent a day there just collecting quartz, which was a pain, but by the time I was done, I had collected a bunch of quartz, like 6 or 7 stacks of blocks. From there, I made my way back over to the overworld and started building the circles on all of the corners. This definitely took some time and it took a bunch of quartz, but eventually I was able to get it done and the entire island was looking pretty cool now. While I was busy on those circles, I then went and also started adding some designs to them. I wasn't going with the exact same design as the ones in the middle, just a bit of a separate design so that it didn't look so samey. It took me a little while to figure this design out, but eventually I came up with this, which I was pretty happy with. Obviously there was a hole in it, but for now it looked pretty good. Speaking of that hole, I needed to decide what I was going to fill it in with, so I made my way through my chest trying to look for a block and eventually decided to try some jungle wood. So I went ahead and made some slabs and then made my way over to that island and started filling it in. However, after placing just a couple of blocks, I could see that it already didn't look very good, so I tore it all back up again. Since I couldn't decide what I was going to fill those holes in with for now, I made my way around my island and started adding the design that I already had to the other 3 sides until eventually I ran out of materials. So I made my way over to the Nether and then mined up a bunch of warped wood that I then took back home with me. Since I was building on my island so much over the last couple of days, I also decided to fill in this hole that was blown up by a creeper a little while ago. And then I grabbed a bunch of blocks that I was going to need and constructed another one of those buildings that I had built a little while ago. You know, the ones that I had planned to trap the villagers in. I mean, keep the villagers in. Yeah, keep the villagers in. Once I was done building one of those, I mined up a bunch of potatoes with my Fortune 3 pickaxe that I then threw to my villagers to start them breeding up a little bit. Since that villager box took up one of the sides where I had planned to build one of these buildings, I decided that instead of moving all those villagers and the box, I would rather just move my enchanting setup, as it would be less of a pain to reconstruct somewhere else. Then I went ahead and built another one of these buildings, which really didn't take me long at all this time. I mean, it was super quick. After that, I went ahead and grabbed myself a bunch of rails and then started trapping some villagers in minecarts and moving them over into their spaces. I started with the first villager, which was the original farmer that I had made to trade bread with, and then I went ahead and moved in 3 other villagers that I had planned to make into cartographers. From there, I gave my villagers a nice nighttime bread shower and then went over to our cartographers and tried to get them to actually take their jobs, as they were just being a little bit tricky. After that, I bought even more bread from my original farmer and fed it to my villagers, as well as adding even more beds to the place so that there would be even more villagers able to breed. From there, I crafted myself a bunch of wood that I then turned into slabs and then went ahead and finished up the designs on the other 3 sides of my island, and now this is what my island was looking like. Pretty dang cool if I do say so myself. From here, I made my way under the circles that I had built originally and started outlining the bottom of them with some quartz too. Once I was done with that, I also decided that I would fill in the sides of these bridges here just so that I would make it look a little bit more complete, which it definitely did. This took me a little while though, as it was a lot of slab placing, but eventually, after about 2 days of building, I was able to finish them all up, and although it didn't make any difference on the map, it definitely looked a lot cooler in person. From there, I went ahead and checked on my villagers to find out that they had in fact been doing a lot of breeding. So I made my way over to the Nether and flew around a bit until eventually I found a crimson wood biome, which gave me the hot tourist destinations achievement. I then went ahead and mined up a bunch of crimson wood that I then took home with me through my portal to find out that it was already nighttime. However, I didn't mind, as I planned to work through the night. Then I started putting villagers in minecarts and moving them into their places, and during this night I was able to move in another 4 villagers, which was a pretty good success, as it meant that I had filled yet another building. I also decided to turn these 4 guys into masons so that I would now be able to trade for my quartz instead of having to go to the Nether to mine it all up, as by this point that had become a serious pain. So using some of my emeralds, I started leveling these guys up, and then I also decided to change my cartographer villagers into fletchers so that I could start trading that wood I had mined earlier with them so that I could get myself even more emeralds. 2 of them took their jobs right away. However, one of them was being a bit of a pain, and sadly, when trying to get him to take his job, I accidentally punched him, so now he's going to be giving me bad traits. While waiting for my villagers to restock, I crafted myself a whole bunch more slabs and then went under my bridges and finished filling them in, as earlier I had run out of slabs and wasn't able to finish. Now that my villagers had restocked, I went ahead and traded a bunch of sticks with them and then traded those emeralds with my masons to eventually level them all the way up to trade me quartz. After that, I traded even more sticks for emeralds, and then went ahead and bought a bunch of quartz from my mason villagers. Using my new quartz, I continued building the circles under the top circles that connected my bridges, as well as making sure to trade all the while doing this to get enough emeralds. Eventually, on day 86, I was able to finish building the circles underneath, and that job was finally now done. Also, since I was busy with quartz, I made my way to the bottom of my island and filled in the area under my water that was flowing down to stop it from infinitely flowing into the void, which just made it look better. During the night of day 86, I started moving in even more villagers and was able to move in yet another 4 villagers, completing yet another one of my buildings. These guys I decided to turn into librarians. However, I wasn't really looking for any specific book from them, as the only reason I actually wanted librarians was to trade trade glass with them. So I was just taking any book that they offered as long as it was pretty cheap and was going to be easy for me to level them up. So after locking in all the librarians' trades, I set up a temporary enchanting area once again and got to doing a little bit of enchanting. First I went ahead and enchanted my bow until eventually I got Flame and Unbreaking 3, which wasn't terrible, but eventually after doing a little bit more enchanting on a separate bow, I got Unbreaking 3, Power 4 and Infinity. So I combined the two bows to get myself a really decent bow. Then I decided to build these little things behind where my librarians were, as I planned to trap a zombie in there to then convert them. So I went ahead and crafted myself a couple of weakness potions, and then when it became nighttime, I got straight to work trapping a zombie. This took me a little bit of struggling, as the zombie kind of just came in and then walked out the other side, but eventually I decided on a different plan of action, which was to walk in the same side that I was going to walk out, and then when the zombie walked in, I ran past him, placed a block, and just like that I had in fact trapped a zombie. So I went ahead and did that for the opposite side too, where my other villagers were, and then I went to bed so that I wouldn't have to deal with all those other mobs that were walking around. When I woke up on day 89, I went ahead and checked the chest to get yet another end portal frame, which finally meant that my total was now at 12, meaning that I could actually go to the end if I wanted to. But, you know me, we gotta save that for day 100. From there, I went ahead and mined out some blocks so that the zombies would be able to kill my villagers. And then when they did, I splashed my villagers with a potion and fed them a golden apple, which meant that they were now converting. Now before I went to go kill the Ender Dragon on day 100, I wanted to do a little bit more enchanting. However, I still didn't really have a good way of getting XP. So I decided that I was gonna build the same mob farm I built earlier, but this time on top of my island, as it was already day 89 and I didn't really have any time to build it anywhere else. So I went ahead and constructed the storage system, as well as added those little platforms once again so that I'd have somewhere to stand when killing the mobs. By this point my villagers had also converted and then converted back into zombie villagers, which is exactly what I wanted. So I went ahead and put them on to convert to villagers again and made sure to kill the zombies so that they wouldn't once again convert. Then I went ahead and finished up building the storage system for this farm and then got to building the farm. By the time the sun was rising on day 90, I went to go just check on the chest to make sure I had everything that I wanted, and then I went ahead and put some food onto Spelt because by this point I'd kind of run out. From this point I also went over to my villagers and started putting them in minecarts to move them into their own separate spaces. This didn't really end up going so well, as at one point the villager nearly died, and then right after I nearly died, and eventually when I got my villagers into place, one of them was killed by an iron golem. So with that terrible failure, I just gave up on the villagers for now and got back to building the mob farm. So here it is. I finished it pretty much during the night of day 90, and then I went to the bottom to go wait for some mobs. While placing down the trapdoors, a zombie did also fall, so I had high hopes for this thing. I then stood next to the storage system the whole night, and by the morning of day 91, there were plenty of mobs for me to start killing, which I got to straight away. Like I said, if you guys have any idea why it wasn't working under my island, please let me know in the comments, as it really makes no sense to me. After killing a couple of mobs, I then took another look at my map, which sadly now has a big black square in the bottom. But that's fine, because at least I have infinite XP now. While I was building farms, I also decided to go onto the one side of my island where I built a cobblestone generator. I built this thing close enough to my haste 2 beacon that I could use haste 2 and instant mine. So now I have infinite stone. Not that I need stone, but at least I have it, I guess. From there, I also decided I would just rather use the villagers in this box rather than trying to move them into their own places. So I lured a zombie in here and then blocked him in to let him kill all the villagers. While I was waiting for him to kill them, I also kept on farming the mob farm just to get myself a decent amount of XP. After the night was done, I went to go check on my villagers, which had now converted, and then went inside to splash them all with a potion and put them on to cure. While waiting for them to cure, I once again went to the mob farm and started smacking those mobs. After collecting enough levels, I enchanted my pants and eventually got protection 3 and breaking 3. Which was pretty good, as by this point my armor was nearly maxed out. I then went to check on my villagers who had also now converted. Sadly, there were only 3 though, which meant that some of them had probably despawned while I was busy. So I went to grab myself a couple of boats and put them all into their own separate boats, and then moved them close enough together to splash them with a potion and feed them golden apples to start the conversion process. Once again, I headed to the mob farm and grinded a couple levels, and then tried to get some feather falling on my boots, but sadly was unsuccessful and eventually just gave up on that. By now I went to go check on my villagers again, who had now converted back into normal villagers, so I started trading up with them to attempt to get glass. However, after leveling up all 3 of them, none of them were selling me glass. Now, I have a bit of a confession to make. When I was actually playing in this world and recording this video, I stayed pretty organized with my chests in the beginning. However, by about day 10, I had just given up and started throwing everything into chests, and that made the chest really unorganized, as you can see here. So when I was recording, I kind of thought, oh yeah, when I edit, I'll show you guys me sorting through chests, which will be a really annoying process, and then for the last couple of days, I'll organize it all and it'll be really satisfying. However, when I got to editing, I kind of thought, you know what, it would be really boring to show you guys me just sorting through chests over and over and over again. So I've cut that all out. However, past me didn't know that I would edit it like this, so I didn't really do anything too exciting from day 93 to 99. The basic rundown of what I did though is I grabbed some copper from one of my chests and went to the corner circles on my island that I then filled in and built a little house on top of. From there, I took a bunch of chests and filled this house up with it for storage. Then I went around my island and just started cleaning up. Also, at one point I did also decide to change one of the old villager houses into my new enchanting room and made it look really overgrown, which I like. I think it looks really cool. I then made sure to take down the ugly villager box that I had built, but most of this time was pretty much just spent with me emptying chests into my inventory, then emptying my inventory to shulker boxes and flying it over to my new storage area, then emptying the shulker boxes into my inventory and sorting it all out. So obviously I'm not going to show you guys me doing this over and over again, but by the time I was done, I had really gotten a good storage system going and everything was looking pretty neat, as you can see here. When I was eventually done sorting all the items, I mined up all the other blocks that had been around my sort of home area and moved them over to my new kind of, I guess you could call it my home for now. I also decided to place a 3x3 of gold blocks under the floor that I then put a beacon on and surrounded with slabs so that the beacon was coming through the floor. Also, by this time I decided it was finally time that I should probably move my bed to a new kind of house area. So I collected everything up and placed my bed right in the middle of this with a beacon going through. Also, since I'm the king of this island, I decided that I may as well put some netherite behind my bed, and then I went and put 3 maps on either side, just so that you could always see what my island was looking like from the top. Now, although I had just been doing a bunch of work, by this time it was in fact day 99. So I collected everything I was going to need to fight the dragon, and then took one more nice scenic flight around my area at night as a nice update of what my island looked like. Then I went to bed for the final time of this video and woke up on day 100 to start placing my end portal frames down, being very careful to place them in the right direction so I didn't mess this up. Once I had built the entire portal, I went ahead and placed in all my eyes, and finally on day 100 I lit the portal and jumped on in. After spawning into the end, I took a nice quick look around and then jumped off, went for a flight and got to fighting the Ender Dragon. And there we have it, day 100, and I had finally killed the Ender Dragon in this world, and all the sweet XP was mine. So I went and collected it all up, grabbed myself the dragon egg, and then went straight back through the portal. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, that was 100 days in hardcore Minecraft on one single chest. Sadly, I wasn't able to finish everything on the island that I wanted to get done in this video, but I hope you still enjoyed the video nevertheless. If you guys want to check out the data pack for yourself, the links to the creator and the data pack will be in the description down below, and I really hope you guys check it out. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!